Welcome back to the Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here, joined as always by the Sultan of Steel, the Miracle of McRae, Myndfit's very own superstar, the Macho Man, Nick Sutherland.
You've missed your calling as an announcer in the wrestling or the UFC or something.
Yeah, it's a dream.
You could be the new Bruce Buffer.
That's it, the Aussie buff. I have a friend, Mick, big shout out to Mick Simpson, who pre-COVID, things haven't kind of fired up again post-COVID, but pre-COVID, the local in Melbourne here, the local MMA scene, he was actually doing the announcing for it. So yeah, just before COVID hit, I was ready to organise because you can get like a table of 10. They put dinner on, drinks down by the cage, and yeah, maybe I could have snuck in to announce a fight or something. I'm not sure.
I had a client turn up the other day. Lots of clients come and talk about the podcast, and this resonated, and it was perfect time, and I heard this and that. And this client came in and he's like, "Oh, I couldn't stop laughing the other day." I'm like, "Oh, which bit? What was it?" And he's like, "Oh, Ryan's, tears, wanking tears." Remember that
The
episode?
shame, the shame making tears.
The 44-gallon drum. I can't think. I don't remember most of the shit we go on about. So it's funny
No,
when
me
I'm
neither.
reminded.
But if someone brings up something specific, I can go because I had forgotten about the 44-gallon drum of my shame making tears.
Yeah. So you asked how I am, and I said I'm hungover.
Few
And
sherbets
then we
last night.
pressed couple of shandies. Yeah. It was great. It was great. It was just Ava, and I. So Ava's M's daughter, and just there's just been heaps going on. I thought earlier, my clients do this. Oh, that's funny because I asked my clients, "How are you?" and they're not allowed to say good or anything. I have to do push-ups, so they think about how they are. And the next thing, ask me, "How am I?" They think about it on the way here, which is great, mindful. And I was thinking about what am I going to say to Ryan? I'm like, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all the past versions of me. I'm so grateful for all the work I've done and continue to do. I'm so thankful for just everything. I'm just in this puddle of gratitude at the moment.
Can we call the
And
episode today "Hungover and Grateful"?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
let's do that. Um, yeah, because there's just been a heap going on. We've got renovations in McRae. We're building up in Queensland at Acacia. We had to put the cat down, Ava's cat down on Monday night. Um, we were in court yesterday for Isaac's driving offence, and what else we got to go? Just got so Em's mum's been in hospital, having surgeries, and it's just life. Life's just happening, but it's happening in abundance right now. And yeah, I know. Last night, Em's really. It's been. Yeah, I'm thankful for the work that I'm because I sit in that space between stimulus and response. I live that sort of meditative life. And I've been observing Em and the kids and everyone around me. And Em's been on a real, like, her heart is so deep. Her love is so strong. And, she's really been struggling lately. And I'm just so grateful that I've done the work to be in a position where I can support her through this and hold space for her and set boundaries for her sometimes. And all that stuff. So last night it was just a bit of a release. It was like a bit of a corner had been turned, and I just bought some steaks and had some, cranked the barbie up, and Ava came home and a couple of beers and bottles of wine and good tunes on and just great chats and laugh. It was just a beautiful, yeah, cathartic sort of evening.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I think like when you have a lot of us have a lot going on like you have. So I'm just going to turn my heater off here. It's making a noise. Plus, this podcast is heating up, so I don't need it anymore. When we have a lot going on coming at us from different corners, we tend to get overwhelmed, if we haven't kind of done the work and we're able to sit in that space that you spoke about between stimulus and response, then life can kind of feel like it's getting on top of us. And, we wish things would quieten down a little bit. But, it's funny how when things do quieten down, we kind of wish that we had more going on as well.
It's the paradox. It's that, I wish it would stop. I've got clients who are farmers, and they've been in drought. Oh, I wish it would rain, and then it starts raining, and then it rains too much. Oh, I wish it would stop raining, and that's the discontent. That's suffering. That's everyone's in this state of discontentedness all the time. But all the stuff we've been experiencing, I said, life's happening. So it's been fucked, or it's been shit, or life's just been happening, and it all just is. There's no attachment or desire for any of it to be different. It's all really important stuff.
Yeah, that's the beauty, isn't it? I don't have a desire for things to be different. Life's happening just the way it's meant to happen. So much of it is outside of my forces. It's been unfolding the way it's been unfolding for billions of years. Do I become in resistance to what's happening? Or do I say, hey, this is what's happening, and have those beautiful moments of gratitude? I was speaking to a friend the other week, and he was reminding me of it, which was really good, because he'd been sick and some of his family had been sick, and it'd been like a kind of a long journey. And he goes, "Oh, just enjoy these moments." And I'm like, "What moments?" He goes, "Just where you're living your life. Everyone, your family are healthy, your friends are healthy. Like, just enjoy this." It's not until those moments of, I suppose, struggle that we go, "Oh, I wish everything was back the way it was, 6 months ago when everyone was kind of healthy."
Well, we live when things are constantly around us, and we're in constant contact with things. We start taking everything for granted, and so when the status quo is disrupted, then that's when people are reminded how good we've actually got it. And, COVID was a classic example of that. All of a sudden, people couldn't do what they'd been so conditioned to do over many years, and there was a massive amount of suffering because they just they weren't getting what they wanted, and life wasn't perfect, and the egos were society's ego was really triggered and activated throughout COVID. So yeah, it's we talk about non-dualistic living, non-dualism, and so happiness, content, suffering, discontent, they're equally as important. One's not better, one's not worse. And when we experience something that's pleasant, as your friend was talking about, yeah, let's go into gratitude for it, because everyone's well and healthy and knocking it out of the park and whatever. But then when it all gets turned on its head, and it's unpleasant and it's dark and stormy and uncomfortable, we go into gratitude for that, an equal amount of gratitude, because there's so much value in there. We're going to learn amazing life lessons. It's going to forge us. It's going to bond us. It's going to challenge us. There's so much growth in there. So both
is what you're saying though,
equally.
Nick? Is what you're saying? Is it non-dual, or is it a complete acceptance of the dualistic nature of being a human being?
Well, I think it's transcending the dualism. It's good and bad. It's not good or bad. It's non-binary.
Me and Nick, from now on, we're living a non-binary life. Not in the way you think.
Yeah, I identify as just being. There you go.
What kind of genitalia does being have?
Whatever I want.
Whatever the moment calls for. What would you like tonight, honey?
Whatever you're serving up, Dale.
Thor's hammer tonight.
Oh God, that went into the gut.
It's like shape-shifting genitalia.
I've gone from shame wanking to shape-shifting genitalia.
With the title of a book series.
We've hit an all-time low. Thanks for sticking with us, listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's once again everything just is it all just is. There's nothing better or worse or good or bad or right or
So you're
wrong.
saying it's accepting that there's two sides to every coin. You know, there's
Well,
contentment and
that's
there's
a spectrum. There's a
discontentment.
spectrum. Everything's on a spectrum,
Yeah.
and happiness is on a spectrum. And at each end of the spectrum there's black and white. So there is the ends of the spectrum, but then there's everything in amongst the spectrum, and you transcend the spectrum, and it all just is.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
You know,
removing the judgment.
yeah, totally. That's really well put. I'm
That's like
good or bad.
the second Zen patriarch. It's like the way, I'm going to butcher this, but it's like the way it becomes easy for the man who has no preference. So it's, I have no preference of emotional state because it's all transitory.
Yeah, I was just listening to a Ram Dass podcast on the way here, and he was touching on it about I can't remember what he said exactly, but it was along those lines of um, not preferencing things. I wouldn't prefer it to be like this. It is that complete surrendering and deep acceptance of what is. And if we don't accept what is, and it's the reality of what is, not the potential of what it all could be or what we prefer it to be, but the reality of what is, then we can die happy. Been talking to death with a few clients about death with clients, and been
Talking
talking
to
to
death.
death. Yeah, talking to death. Yeah,
That's
just
deep. That's really deep.
he came in. He's doing a 12-week
The
program.
Grim Reaper.
He's got some baggage and some
Leave your
stuff to sort
giant
out.
Sith at the front door, please.
So we've been talking about death, and one client was, she'll know who she is when she listens to this. She was talking about her fear of death, that had been triggered by an event recently. And I heard myself say something, and I was like, well, Ram Dass talks about death is just another moment for the soul, and it's just and so I sort of explained that on the whiteboard. And, oh yeah, and I went, it's funny to be afraid of death because you've been dead before. Before you were in existence, you were dead. So you've already died. You've already been dead. What is there to
Yeah.
fear? It's people aren't afraid of death per se. They're afraid of not seeing the people they like, or they're afraid of the unknown. Mostly, they're not afraid of death itself. It's
Yeah. It's like, are you
irrational.
afraid of what it was like before you were born? What was it like before you were
Mm,
born? I don't know. Nothing. Yeah, cool.
yeah,
It'll probably
yeah.
be that again.
And do you have an aversion to that? No. All right, problem solved.
Yeah.
Next,
Next.
next, please.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
so
interesting. It's like, today I'm super happy and excited, but I don't expect or even want it to be like that all the time, because you spoke about earlier, I would call it normalization, but all that would do is just normalize that state, and then we're going to look for the next thing. That's just sort of what it is to be human. It's like we can either sit in deep acceptance of who and what we are as to the best of our knowledge, or we can keep trying to find the next thing and clawing at it, because it won't be long before. I mean, I did this most of my life with drugs. It's like I want to be happy and excited all the time, and let me tell you, I tried really hard and it's impossible. It leads to more pain. It's like the ancient was it the Romans or Greeks? It might have been the Romans, and they had obviously their upper class, the most powerful empire in the world. Their upper class had unlimited resources. They could do anything they want. So it was all at their disposal. So as a human being, what do I want? I just want, all sorts of different pleasure and happiness all the time. And, that was all the best, wine and women and all of this. But then all of a sudden, one beautiful woman became two beautiful women, became five beautiful women, became these giant orgies. They would end up getting to a point where they tried to stay at this pleasure for so long that they would actually had to inflict pain on other people. They would start hurting women. They would sacrifice women. They would do stuff to get themselves, hurt, in that kind of S&M kind of deal and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it just keeps leading more and more towards pain that you're kind of trying to avoid the whole time. And I think people have tried that throughout history.
It's no different to Ram Dass when he was getting high on meditation. He was trying to escape being a human. He was trying to avoid the human experience. Took him 30 years to figure out that he's a human. He's signed up for it. So what you're saying, it's escapism. What it is, it's I want to get out of this, and I just want to feel good all the time. There's that deep attachment. I want to feel good. I don't want to feel bad. There's that avoiding the spectrum, avoiding the totality of it all, and it just, as you succinctly put, it's just leads you back around to it. So it creates this really shitty cycle, and you end up exactly where you don't want to be. And then the hilarious part is then you get distorted that. So many people get angry at being angry, or anxious at being anxious, or frustrated at being frustrated, and it just deepens the cycle.
Yeah, and the cycle, when it goes on for years and even decades, then people do kind of forget where the cycle even begun. That's why delving into where a lot of these thought patterns and emotions come from is important, because like you said, it might start somewhere and start spiraling on itself. But then when you go years and decades in the future, you're more angry and upset about being angry and upset. And then you're like, I don't even know what I was initially angry and upset about. But oftentimes it's because we're stuck in this cycle of trying to like chase a rainbow, of not being, who we want to be authentically, and trying to find quick fixes for everything. Every little problem we have, we're just looking for a pill or a person to pacify ourselves.
I used to not like a lot of things, which seems quite nonsensical sitting here in this version of myself now. I wouldn't have liked everything that's been going on lately. I wouldn't have liked seeing M in suffering. I would have had an opinion on it. I would have had a judgment of it all. But with the way and myself, within all these experiences, I would have had judgments of myself. But within it, it's just been, it's just, it didn't feel wonderful, but it still just felt, I just felt it. And that was okay to feel it. And it was okay for M to be sad, and it's okay for the kids to be sad, and it's okay for us all to be on our journey. In fact, it's beautiful when you transcend the judgment of it. It all becomes beautiful, and my heart breaks every day, and that's beautiful, because that means I am love, and the heart doesn't stay broken. It's not it's not a Mills and Boon novel or anything. It's empathy, it's compassion, it's it's tragedy, and you want to feel it, you want it to come in, but then you want it to do its thing, and you want it to leave. So, people are deathly afraid of feeling feelings, and then they fall into these escape mechanisms, and it just doesn't do anyone any good.
Yeah, well, you spoke about judgments, and it gets conditioned into us pretty early on that, we shouldn't be feeling, bad or heavy feelings, and oftentimes because they were kind of rejected when we were younger. But it all is beautiful, like when you can lose the story around the feeling and just feel it. I mean, it's so beautiful. Like grief, like, man, when you really sit in grief and feel it completely, and you lose the story of whatever you've lost shouldn't have gone or it should come back, and you just feel grief, it is incredible. It is just so beautiful. That's why we love going and watching a movie that might elicit the grief, because the story's not mine. I probably said this in a podcast before, but I went when a Lady Gaga fan over here, just for anyone that wants to know.
Just popped out of the closet then with that, didn't you?
I once went to a Lady Gaga concert, and I wore like a Lady Gaga singlet, and I went with my ex-wife and one of our mates who, like, because I was open about it, and so many guys are closet like Lady Gaga, and he's like, I might come to the concert with you. I'm like, yeah, come mate, come. And we went, and I bought him like those fluoro glasses with the lines in it, and me and him were wearing that, and we were on the floor, and we had this other homosexual friend up in the crowd, and he was messaging going, it looks like my ex-wife is with she's a fag hag with two fags down there. I'm like, yeah, we're going for it. It's great. But when A Star Is Born came out, I went and watched it at the movies, and I fucking cried. It's such a sad movie, and I like bawled my eyes out through pretty much the whole thing. And then as soon as I left, if anyone asked me how's the movie, I'm like, it was so fucking good. Like, you should go and see it. It's like I want my friends to feel sad. It's like at our core, I think we know that these emotions are beautiful, but when we have our own baggage and our own stories attached to them, we're like, nah, nah, don't want them, don't want them. In the context of a movie or a TV show, it's like it's their story, so it's okay. I'm safer to feel this.
Yeah, when we're a little bit removed from it, it's
Got some
okay.
distance.
When we put Carlos down, the cat on Monday, I was sitting in the room and I'm just sitting there looking at three people I love plus a cat that I love, and my heart's breaking, and because I was transcending the judgment of it, that it wasn't good or bad that this was happening. It's just we can't have life without death, and it's all one. And as soon as we're born, we start dying, and all that sort of stuff. And then I was just in my heart space. I wasn't in my ego, which is where the judgment. I wasn't in my judging mind. I was in that Buddha nature, that heart space, and it was such a beautiful experience. I was so grateful to be there and to be sharing that moment with people I love. And until you've done enough work, people struggle to get their heads around it. Their mind really can't grasp that until it's been cultivated a certain way. So,
And it's a very
but you're
male.
talking.
Sorry, just to jump in,
You're,
it's a really important point you bring up, because obviously, we've got a lot of blokes listening to the show, and it's such kind of a male thing to see problem, want to fix it. It's like, what's the path from A to B to fix whatever this problem is? And because we deem these heavy emotions or our loved ones being sad as a problem, we want to go ahead and fix it. And you're talking about being in this space of just letting that be. It's okay for people to be sad. Like in that moment in my head, and I used to do this most of my life, and in my head, it's like the male energy. It's like, oh, they're crying because the cat's died. That's all right. Stop crying. We'll go get you a new cat now. It's like, let's push the emotions down and let me see what I can do logistically in the world to manipulate the world to try and make everybody feel okay. And a lot of men as well, so many that I've worked with have also, if they can't find some sort of quick fix for it, then they kind of take on those emotions as a bit of a burden as well, instead of just saying, hey, it's a perfectly appropriate moment for everybody to be sad and grieving. Let me grieve with you.
When a child's crying, how many times does it hear "stop crying"? And it's like, suppress your emotions, please.
Stop
Would
being
you suppress them
Stop
even
being
more? Stop being a sook. Stop being so sensitive.
Yeah.
That's a classic. What you're talking about before was, obviously
The shape-shifting genitalia. Or was it after that?
yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's
I knew you'd want to
one
come
of the
back to
four.
that.
That's one of the four noble truths in Buddhism.
It's the fifth one. They've added a new one.
the Buddha's rolling in his new incarnation of whatever it is.
My penis is shaped like the Buddha.
Days. Yeah, I wonder if the Buddha came back. I wonder if he.
Oh, I reckon he would have been pretty done. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
what else are you gonna do? Maybe
maybe
to humble himself, he'd come back as a homeless
dog.
guy living in the streets.
I probably when you become enlightened, I think you just come back as a dog.
Maybe a gnat or some sort of flea. Maybe a mayfly lives for a day. That'll do him.
A march fly.
A march
biting
fly.
everyone.
Oh God!
Yeah,
Buddha, stop it.
Anyway, so they the four noble truths. The last one is the eightfold path. So that's the way out of suffering. And when you're talking about removing your personal story from things, that's pure understanding. That's one of the things on the eightfold path, and it's so important. I think we're going to interview a principal from a local school here soon, and to talk about what is any of this been taken into the school curriculum. And the number one question I hear from clients is, why aren't we learning this in school? Why aren't we being taught this in school? Why is it all IQ and no EQ? So I think it's so important for us to 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 find that path, whether it's Buddhism or whatever. It's so important to find a path to follow. Guidance. We need guidance. We're not born and given a handbook and saying, "Oh, this is how to manage this, and this is how to live not in so much suffering." It's important to find something that resonates with you and you connect with, and it can sort of help you along the way. But a lot of people are just it's like a free for all. They're just doing their best, but it's chaos out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that chat also, actually. I think there's some more programs coming into schools, which are really promising. But as far as curriculum goes, it would depend on, I suppose, the school. Because obviously we're looking at things, with Tommy now. Tommy's 4 next month. Do you want to come to his party, by the way? We're just organising it. We're going to send out invites soon. Dinosaur World.
Can I'm so there. Can I come as an Autobot,
You can
a
come.
Dino bot?
A
Can I be
Dino
a Dino
Grimlock.
bot?
You're going to come as Grimlock.
Yeah,
Me,
Grimlock.
Grimlock. You can absolutely do that. Nick, you can come as whatever you want.
Oh, come as you are,
In a
Nirvana.
bra. So I am looking forward to that chat as well. So with Tommy, yeah, we're kind of looking at, which way do we want to go here? I have so many hang-ups with the standardized school system that I'm not
What
looking
you mean?
to.
It's an archaic system that judges the fish and its ability to climb a tree. Really, you've got a problem? You've got a
I've got a
problem with that?
little problem with it. A little bit.
You get to remove your personal story from it, man.
Just
Remove
this
your
much.
judgment of it,
Just
man.
this much. I got a little
Do
judgment.
the
I got a little
do the
niggling
work on
judgment
it, man.
going on.
Do the work. Hey, I've got some beautiful things to share with you. I've written them down.
Wow.
This is advice for people listening. Don't go to your friends for advice. Go to a trained professional. I had a client handling a situation really well. He'd come a long way, and he was in it. And then he went to the pub therapists. The blokes, the barflies, and I was like, oh no, and it was a very tragic circumstance. A person had tried to take their life, and he went to the pub's therapist, and guess what their advice, well, their initial reaction was, oh, pity he didn't finish the job.
Right.
And oh yeah, no, fucking, and that's the tangent they took him on. That's just it felt horrendous,
It
and
does, doesn't it?
yeah, and I said, buddy, you gotta email me, ring me, call me if you ever wanting some advice. Please don't go to these unhealed people. They're not. It's not good
Yeah.
for your
Unless you're
soul.
friends.
It's
If
not
you're
good for
friends
your
with
heart.
me and Nick, come, you can come to us. Maybe because because what you're talking about here is if I'm seeking advice, if I'm seeking counsel, is the person I'm seeking counsel with, leading a life that kind of I want to live? Are they living by
Well,
ideals that I
if,
want to
if,
live?
if I want to build a house, I'm going to go and ask a builder. I'm not just going to wing it, and shit's going to fall over and people are going to get hurt. So if I'm trying to figure out how to move through a really emotional experience, I'm going to go to someone who's probably trained and competent in handing out that advice.
Yeah, yeah. There's like also this thing that, whether it's that bar mentality, it's like we kind of, I think we're seeking like a bit of a community and a safe place, but we're just looking in the wrong area. I remember when I used to be a drug addict and I would happily give out unsolicited advice. Oftentimes it was solicited though. People would be genuinely asking about advice about how to live their life, and I'd happily give it whilst I'm smoking meth and on my 5th day of being awake. And it's quite hilarious looking back on it because that was it's like, why would you ask this person for advice in the first place? Which is like the guy going to the bar. It's like, why are you even seeking counsel there? But oftentimes we don't have the people in our life or the willingness to see a professional to get that advice.
It's like you're handing out your business card. Oh, sorry, that's my crack pipe. I just dropped.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, can you grab that for me? um, yeah, so yeah, that's what I wanted to say about
What
that.
other beautiful things do you have there, Nick?
I have I am fortunate enough to have a client who is she just fills the room. She is color. She is. It's not you. Oh, you're cracking your back. I thought you were like me. Yes, I'm that friend.
I was just
Are
cracking
you
my
doing
back. My ego's not that active, Nick. Come on.
it? Okay, right, yeah. And she fills the room. She is light. She's color. She is magnificent in her beauty. And every session, she's just an absolute. She's a saint. She's a saint. But she came in, and Dan, interestingly enough, who I've had on the podcast, who's working with me now, he's coming into Myndfit. He said something really wonderful. He framed it really well. He said, for him, Myndfit is like an intersection of waking up and growing up, waking up and growing up,
It's a
waking
beautiful
up to what's
description.
available, and emotionally maturing. And so this client came in, and she was very childlike, and she still is in her nature, but she was very immature as well. And she's done a lot of growing up, and she's a mother of three beautiful kids, and she came in and she shared with me. As I said, how have you been since last month? And she said, "Ah, it's been a roller coaster, and I heard the most tragic thing, and it was really beautiful." And I was like, I can't wait to hear what this is. And she said, my 10-year-old came to me. My 10-year-old son came to me, and he said, Mum, I don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel connected. I don't want to live anymore. And and I just held my breath. I was like, oh, I wonder how she dealt with this. I wonder where she went. And she said, that's okay. And she just fell into her heart and fell into compassion, and just created the most safest space for this little boy, and just held that space for him. And I was crying with joy and with sadness and with everything. And I'm just like, what? What a moment in history. I get to experience, I was very selfish, I made it about me. I was like, I get to experience this. I went, hey, it's your session. And I thanked her profusely for the work that she'd done, and for being of that nature for this person in suffering. And she just handled it so magnificently. And she said she couldn't have achieved that without doing the work. She couldn't have reached that level of compassion and humanity without having really knuckled down. And I just, it was stunning. It was stunning to hear it.
Oh, it's so stunning because there rarely be a tougher, I suppose, sentence to hear from a child
Dude,
like that.
she transcended her ego. She transcended her mother nature. She transcended everything. She just it was incredible. Like 90, 100 mothers or fathers, and the kid comes up and says, I don't want to live anymore. Oh, the reactions would have been, oh, what do you mean? Don't say that. Oh, that's terrible. There would be this mindless reaction. And she went the opposite way. She went inwardly instead of outwardly, and just hugged him with her heart. And just, I was
Wow.
oh.
Because that's what does anybody in that situation need? They need to be held in a loving space unconditionally without agenda. And that's so incredibly hard for people to do because, like you said, they get themselves involved and, no, you don't. Like, what can we do? Blah, blah. Then later on, when they're by themselves, I'm stuffed up as a parent, and they'll beat themselves up. And all of this is taking them
About them,
away.
all of
Yeah,
us.
it's taking them away from holding that loving space for the person that they do, in fact, love.
Well, I've said to clients all the time, your primary job is working on this. Your parenting and your occupation, all that is secondary. You can't be of service. You can't help anyone unless you're helping yourself first and foremost. You got to be okay before you can be there for others. And then 2 days later, I had another client come in and say her daughter came up to her and said, "I want to kill myself." And that opened this beautiful conversation. And we got to explore. We've got a tool in here we call looking beyond the projection. So not engaging them on that level and reacting on that level, but coming underneath it, which my past client did. And I said, your daughter's not saying she wants to end her life. She's not saying I want to kill myself. What's she really saying? If you tune right into her, what she's saying, and she's saying, I'm struggling. I feel stuck. I don't know what to do.
I don't want to be suffering anymore.
Exactly. She doesn't want to end her life per se. She doesn't want to extinguish her life force. And so when we can meet them on that level and be non-reactive to them, that's what the place you get to in doing enough of this work is you can sometimes the best response is no response. It's just that, oh, how interesting. Oh, that's okay. Oh. And not preferring them to not come to you with that. Like on this surface level, no parent would like their child to come to them and say, I want to kill myself. But we've got to stop operating on that level so much and come underneath it and just go, I'm here and you're stuck. And here, what's appropriate? This is EQ. Social awareness is the third step. Fourth one is relationship management. What is required? What is necessary right now? It's not what do I think or how do I fix this or how do I make this go away or how do I change it? It's here and it needs to be left alone. Well, not left alone. It needs to be cared for.
Yeah, it's actually, most kids who feel that way wouldn't actually feel safe enough to speak to their parents about it in the first place.
Totally.
And so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind to them, but it's like it's actually a sign of good connection there that someone's even able to open up. I know I would have never told parents about those feelings or the fact, fact that I was using drugs or whatever it was, just never.
No, the sense of shame would have been to the pride, the fear of being judged, the ego would have prevented it. So, so they were amazing. A big theme lately about people and meditation, and speak about gratitude. There's a lot of doing meditation and doing gratitude. We've spoken about. I yelled at people before about stop doing your gratitude lists. But it's just really interesting. People are looking for apps, and I'd love your thoughts on this because I think apps are dumbing us down. Someone said, "Oh, what's a good app you recommend for meditation?" And I burst out laughing, and I caught myself. I apologised, and then explained that meditation's been around for 2.5, 3,000 years. They did pretty well without an app back in the day. And then I said, are you breathing? And they're like, yes. I said, how do you know? Well, because I'm alive. And I said, no, that's you guessing. How do you know that you're actually breathing? Stop and actually listen to a breath. Yeah, I'm breathing. You just meditated. Look at that. Now do it for 2 breaths. Oh, the training wheels fell off. Now you're a proficient meditator. Well played. Well done. Congratulations.
Do you think it's funny though, like on an app, it'd be like, okay, now pay attention to your breath. And you're like, oh, this app's great. Recommend it to all my friends.
It's making us lazy. We're just opening up and have someone else do it for us. And I understand people go, oh, but am I doing it right or wrong? You can't fuck it up. You've got a breath. Just listen to it when the mind wanders off. The breath is a stimulus. The breath, we focus on the breath in meditation because we can only breathe in the here and now. We're not breathing in the past, we're not breathing in the future. So the breath is just a vehicle to bring us into this moment. And it's just stimulus. So you're observing stimulus. Then when the mind wanders off, which is its nature and it's going to do, then you just observe that. That's just stimulus. And then you just bring it back to the breath and focus on the breath. And that's it. That's meditating. Terribly difficult. But then people do their 15, 30, 60-minute meditation and then get up and mindlessly go out and do the rest of the day. And I'm like, you've just been observing stimulus internally, thoughts, feelings, breath, whatever. As soon as you open your eyes, you can stay in observation of things. That's living a meditative life. Just stay in the observation of things. Just keep witnessing, keep noticing all day. And when you find yourself off in an illusion of the future or recalling, a video of the past, just bring yourself back to observing whatever's around you in this point in time. So, for people listening and jumping on the apps and everything, just put the apps away for a while and just sit with yourself, sit with your breath, and you've got everything you need to meditate at your disposal.
I was watching the other night actually, just to try and relate everything back to golf. I was watching a golf show on KO, and they were playing a few holes with Jeff Ogilvy, former Australian golfer, US Open champ, and yeah, the playing with one of the ladies, and she got to hit her approach shot and went to grab her rangefinder, which is tech. We're talking about just adding tech to everything, really. And Jeff Ogilvy's like, "Oh, put that away. Just don't worry about it." I'm like, how far out do you think you are? Like, what club? And she's like, "Oh, I don't know. Kind of feels like a 7-iron. It's good. Hit it." Then she hit it and she got it on the green. And he's like, "We're all trying to add tech, to golf, and this relates to meditation and everything." And he goes, "The more tech that we add, and yes, it's wonderful, and you got your TrackMan and get your numbers and all this kind of stuff." And he goes, "We don't want to lose the actual connection with the earth around us and the golf course in front of us. We don't want to disconnect." And then, with golf, and I see this with meditation as well, like exactly what you're saying. It's like, let me try and codify it to an extent. And then once it's codified, add some technology to it. And then, like you said, people, they might commit to this 20 minutes in the morning meditation that they do on an app, but it's like, they can't wait for that bell to ring and the 20 minutes is up so they can mindlessly go about their day. And then,
but they also want to tick the box, and I've meditated, yes, and then I've written my 3 things I'm grateful for. So I've ticked these boxes and wandered off.
yeah, and it's like thinking that was the goal, but it's like, why did you decide that being grateful or meditating was going to be good for you in your life? Why were you wanting to do it? Like, is it because you want to live a more peaceful and meditative life, or you're not going to do it if you're constantly trying to schedule it, then escape away from it? I had a client the other week, and we had this certain focus of him coming up in a session, and he's very structured like that. And he's like, "All right," I'm like, you need to meditate on this, like literally as much as you can. And he's like how much? Like just morning and night? Like what times of the day are best? I'm like, literally whenever you remember. I'd prefer if you were meditating on this the majority of the day whilst you're doing everything else. Now, early on, it'll take a little bit of training of your attention to do that. Maybe if you want to set a timer 5 times a day where you focus on that, that's good, but then let it go and start to do it naturally. Okay, because otherwise we're reliant on all this stuff. You'll see it when people go, away and there's no phone reception or something, or their phone died. It's like they're lost. It's like, you're not lost. You're still here. And like you said,
they're disconnected. They're so disconnected, as you said. It's just like, where's my safety net? Where's my mechanism to? It's dopamine. It's where's my dopamine hit? And it's like, actually just sit. A client picked up on what you were just saying. He said, I get a bit confused because Ryan keeps saying meditate on this, and I'm gonna enlighten you here. There's a difference between meditation and contemplation. So if meditation is simply observing things as they are, and so observing the breath, if we want to meditate on something, more often than that's more contemplation. That's more, I want you to really think about this. I want you to contemplate this. I want you to go into this and explore it and figure it out. That's different to meditating per se.
Yeah. They're so, I suppose, linked to me, because when I am more meditative and feel clear and have clarity, then I'm able to contemplate really beautifully from a really, beautiful place. So oftentimes a meditation will, in those terms, become a contemplation for me. But you can say, I just like saying, meditate on this. Meditate on this.
Yeah, no. It's semantics. You know what I'm like with semantics. It's because as soon as we get lost in thought, if we get swept away in a thought, then we're not present. And meditation is all about being in the here and now. It's all about being in that moment. So if you're going to contemplate, set the intention to go into contemplation. Sit with your eyes closed. All right, I'm going to contemplate, and you're going to, the mind will go off into those thoughts, and will conjure and create and do whatever. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. But then, if you want to meditate, sit there and just, when you notice the mind wanting to wander off into the thoughts, that's where you bring it back.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
like you said, the breath's always available. You can bring it back. It's as simple as that. I do it every night when I'm going to sleep,
mm,
and I go to sleep like that. It's just focus on the breath. Oh, this happened today. This is happening tomorrow. This is going to happen next week. Back to the breath, back to the breath. Then off we go. Off we go to sleep.
I've got a question for you. What
The answer
determines?
is yes.
Do you have shape shifting genitalia?
Yes.
Oh,
What do you think it is right now?
Arnold Schwarzenegger's arm holding a bowling ball.
Fuck. Sorry, this is a tangent, but there's some videos circulating now. They're able to like superimpose somebody's face onto a movie character like flawlessly now. Like it's amazing.
Mm.
So someone sent me, like, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's like really ugly old male actor, and he's like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. And the other day they put Arnold Schwarzenegger on Kate Winslet's face in Titanic, and he's like, "Paint me Jack," and it's like it's seamless. I'll send it to you after we jump off. It is fucking so funny. And he like takes his robe off. He's got the long hair. Anyway, ask me the question.
What determines if someone is more affected by a situation than somebody else? What, two people, parallel universes, walking down the street, someone drives past and goes, "Hey, you fucking idiot." One person gets really affected by that and would need to go to therapy to help. Trauma on a spectrum. Someone would just go, "Oh, okay, whatever," and the other person would go, "Oh," and they'd be deeply affected. It would be a traumatic experience for them.
Yeah,
What
conditioning.
a what's the difference between two people experiencing the same thing and having trauma or not trauma?
Yeah, so we get conditioned by our environment and where we grew up, and we're being conditioned all the time. Most conditioning happens in the first 7 years, but we're always being conditioned as human beings. Our brains are always plastic, neuroplasticity, they move around. So because we've all had different experiences, we all have different conditioning. So we have different filters within which we view the world. So it's like we're all wearing these kind of filters, these invisible filters, and we'll filter reality through those to try and work out, what's important and what's not. And so if someone's driving the car and someone's like, "Hey, you fucking idiots," and then one person, there's like just nothing, like, what a clown. And the other person's deeply affected by it. Maybe when they were younger, growing up, their father yelled at them and called them a fucking idiot all the time. Maybe there was a group of guys in the car who beat them up or abused them when they were younger. Okay, so hence that's going to trigger part of their conditioning, which is a trauma response, which hence they'll probably need to seek some professional help for that. I mean, that's why two people can walk into the same room and see a completely different scenario. We can
So could we summarize it as perception then?
100%.
Okay, so a follow-up question. Do you think people realize that we can play around with perception?
No, most people don't.
It's so interesting,
So it's
isn't it?
like, because what happens now, then people will, this conditioning forms an identity structure. It's like a big tree. So we're born and there might be a little sapling
But
here with some genealogical stuff. And then we grow up and we have this identity structure of who it is to be Ryan or who it is to be Nick. And then we get
the
very
ego,
attached. Yeah, exactly.
the
An ego
ego.
structure. And so basically then we get very attached to that. We identify with the ego structure. So now that's inherently who I am. And I don't realize that I can be different and play with that, as you say.
So the two people, one goes, "Oh, they're not in their ego. Their ego isn't in the driver's seat." The other one, their ego is in the driver's seat, and the ego is the thing that's been bruised. Oh, I must be loved and liked. and these are my parameters of what being loved and liked is, and so I just experienced something outside of those parameters, and so now I have been wounded. It's the ego gets wounded.
And so then
It's
they
so.
could be walking to a cafe to have lunch, and they sit down at the cafe, and a situation happens where it's flipped. And the other person who was calm before gets very, very reactive to a situation, and the other person probably still thinking about being yelled at in the car and isn't even paying attention. So it's like we've all got this stuff
But
going
that
on.
person's in suffering, as we call it. They've been hurt and affected, and they say it's their fault. They hurt me. Now, where does the responsibility lie in our suffering? And for me, it's we have a responsibility to, pure speech is one of the eightfold path. We have a responsibility to not harm others, but fundamentally, we are responsible for our own happiness. We have a responsibility to be able to operate in a reality where pleasant and unpleasant things are said, and to not be so shifted around by everything.
Yeah. So what I see, it's like people who are, doing this kind of work that both you and I do, and they come into it for the first time, they go through these kind of 3 stages. And the first stage is what I would call it's everyone else's fault. So they come in, and like you're saying, and this is where most people
They
operate.
made me feel this way. They
Yeah,
made me feel this way.
I'm angry because my partner did this, my boss is doing that,
Yeah.
my friend used to speak to me, now they're not. So it's everything's everyone else's fault. As you start doing this work, and that might take a few weeks, a few months, a few years, you then go to the second stage, which you're like, oh, everything's my fault. Every emotional reaction that I have is coming from within me. Seemingly, I spoke about this the other week with someone. It's like we all, you know, want to go on holiday because, I keep being made to feel disrespected by my boss. Maybe that's a common theme. It's I can't wait to finish up work and just get away. And we think we're going to be away in a physical location, so we're going to be emotionally in a different location. It doesn't take long. Once the novelty wears off, it'll be the fucking, the checkout person at Woolworths who makes them feel disrespected. It's like we're using other people to reinforce an emotional pattern.
Well, you're taking the same mental filters with you on holiday. So whether it's your boss or anyone else, that stimulus is still going to trigger those underlying toxic beliefs that you must be
100%.
loved and
And
liked,
so
and
then
everything
we
must
go
be
through
perfect.
this place of radical ownership where we're like, oh no, everything's actually my fault. But then after we start to work through that, we kind of get to this next phase, which is like, oh, no one's to blame. Nothing's anyone's
There's
fault.
a
Because
there's a
because what happened
beautiful.
because what happened to me when I was conditioned, I didn't ask to be conditioned that way. That's just what happened. So that's why I have these reactions now as an adult, and I was conditioned at a very unconscious level. And then the people and circumstances that I were conditioned in, they were reacting off their conditioning. So I can't blame them either. So it's kind of this letting, and it's very hard for the ego to not blame someone for something. It's very hard to go, oh, no one's to blame here, because it just wants to point and find someone. And so that kind of
That's
seems to be the final stage
that's
of
a
letting
and
go.
yeah, that's a cognitive distortion, and which is one of those lenses that we do. So to summarize that, he who blames others has a long way to go. He who blames himself is halfway there, and he who blames no one has arrived.
Did you make that up? Because if you did,
No,
no,
I,
damn it.
I
I
don't
thought that
have the
was
ego to say yes. I really wish.
that exactly. Who said, is that a Buddhist thing? That really summed it up
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He who blames others has a long way to go. And once again, a long way to go. We're on a journey. There's a path. He who blames others is halfway there, and he who blames no one
Isn't it
has
funny?
arrived.
We go through our life and we come to these realizations in our own life. Then you realize someone summed it up in a couple of sentences a couple of thousand years ago. Like takes 35 years to have a realization, and then you realize someone summed it up easier than that many years ago.
Well, that's why the super woke, the enlightened ones, they're called realized beings, just because they've had so many realizations.
Mm.
They're in this pure reality of existence. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's just really hopefully people hear in that that doing this work is the ego, trying to just shift the ego, but the ego's got a part to play where it has a nature and everything, but we want to work with it instead of against it. And uh, Ram Dass talks about cauterizing, getting heating up some metal and steering it. It's like he cauterizes. And I was like, oh fuck, that's sort of what I do with clients. It's like whack-a-mole. The ego pops up and whack. He hurt me. I'm like, oh, where's my invitation to your pity party?
Yeah.
Where's the
It's a dinosaur world.
and it's luckily I've got the rapport with them to play around with their suffering. It's done with empathy and respect and compassion, but I really do need people to understand and hear how irrational they're being. Like,
it's great. It's great when clients go, because they've been through it enough times, and they'll come in really agitated and they'll start a story. Anyway, and he did this, and then they'll stop themselves and go, "Oh, I'm doing it again." Oh no, you're like, yeah.
So that's that waking up. That's the waking up is just awareness. That's the waking up, and then the growing up is done. In the waking up, it's like awareness. I'm in that. I'm in that tendency of mine. I'm in that habit. I'm in that conditioning. I'm in that pattern. Now I can just laugh at myself, and that's what we call that a mental rep. You can laugh at yourself, or just take a breath and let go, surrender. And just now I just go, geez, ego, you're okay. And it's like, no, I'm really hurt. And you're like, well, you'll be okay. And off we go.
Have you read the book Awareness by Anthony DeMello?
I have not.
Yeah, I recommend it. Get the audiobook. It's a good probably better on audiobook actually, because he's actually speaking to a crowd and they've just recorded it. Brilliant book. Exactly what you're talking about. It's just like wake up, but he's very blunt but very humorous at the same time. And it's a great little talk. There's one bit he's talking about love and how it's all conditional love. And he's like, try saying to your partner, I'd rather be happy than be with you, and then he sees all of the kind of the shame and the guilt and everything that comes up with that. And it's like, so you want the same for them. So you'd rather them stay with you than be happy. And then someone in the crowd like nods. He's like, oh, you admit it. You're admitting it. So two people get together. They'd rather be together than be happy. So they both just stay together and be miserable. Long live love. And they just start laughing. And it's a really beautiful talk, actually.
It's great when you can go into that playfulness with it, and I'm so grateful. How many times have I said the word grateful today? I just heard it again.
Well, you started off by saying you were in a puddle of gratitude.
Oh yeah, that's right. I must have done a
spin-off band of Puddle of Mud.
I must have done my gratitude.
Nick did his 5-minute journal this morning. Look at him go. He felt hungover and shit, and then he consciously got his app out and wrote, I'm grateful for my coffee I had yesterday. And then he was just oozing love. And that's what the app does. It works just like that.
Oh, it's incredible. I'm going to go and download all of them. and live in a digital reality instead of
just live in gratitude lists. That's your whole life from now on. Maybe you get a VR headset in the metaverse, create gratitude land, and it'll just be all different lists of what people are grateful for.
Oh, I'm having a deeper version to that. I'm in suffering. I better go and do some work around surrendering to that.
Do a surrender list.
I just threw up in my mouth.
All right.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Beautiful.
Great.
Hungover and grateful. That's what I'm going to call this episode.
Hungover and grateful. Beautiful. Perfect.
Thank you for joining us, listeners. We hope you have taken something away from that talk, even if it maybe is your ego getting poked a little bit. That's always a good thing. Please hit us up if you have any questions or want us to talk about anything on future episodes.
When you can play with the ego, just to finish up, when you realize the ego is the only thing that's really getting hurt, clients come and they start throwing themselves under the bus, and it's beautiful. Oh, I had this pity party, and I was kidnapped by my ego, and they start throwing the ego under the bus, and there's this humility comes in. The humility can't exist when the ego's in existence. So they come with this wonderful, humble humility and taking the piss out of themselves. And I know that home and hosed when they're in that space.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, Nico. Thank you as always, mate.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.